Hello everybody and welcome or welcome back to the second shelf and to another recent reads on Sunday, my fairly regular Sunday video, kind of regular, in which I look back at the week or the weeks and to tell you what I've read and what I'm still reading. If you're celebrating, Merry Christmas. I hope you have good holidays, and if you're not celebrating, at least you enjoy your days off, I presume. As you can probably tell from the lighting, this is an extremely gray, rainy day here in Germany. It's not getting light. I mean, not really. You have to have lights on all day. And even though I filmed this in the morning, it feels like it's nighttime. So yeah, we'll just have to roll with it. Anyway, on to the books. There are 3 books that I finished that I want to talk to you about. And it's a kind of cloak and dagger heavy video because Christmas, cloak and dagger Christmas. So we're reading crime fiction. And the first book that I read was this one, weird glare, Murder on the Red River by Marcy R. Rendon. And this book was the book club pick. Can you say that? Well, it's not really book club, but make a whole sentence, maybe. The BookCougars. Emily and Chris, you're probably familiar with their podcast. I will leave a link to the Goodreads group down below. And as you know, I love their podcast, but they also have a group read or a read along every quarter. And this was the pick for the last quarter. It's a debut novel. Marcy R. Rendon is an Indigenous author. And this is obviously a crime, murder on the Red River. And the main character is Cash Black Bear, 19-year-old Indigenous woman, waitressing, making money by shooting pool. She's very good at that. Living in Fargo, North Dakota. Some of us know Fargo from either the film or the series, but there is also a link to the reservation, which is between North Dakota and Minnesota. So it's not set in Fargo, I would say, but Fargo plays an important role. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. It's Christmas, people. We're just going to roll with it. I'm not going to edit any of this out. The other main character is the sheriff of the county. And Cash and the sheriff have kind of almost father-daughter relationship. Cash grew up in foster homes, and the sheriff, took her in, takes care of her when something is wrong. So it's not so much a friendship, it's really more a father-daughter relationship. And then, of course, a murder happens. Cash is not a policewoman, but she helps the sheriff because the sheriff is a white guy and he does not really have any access to Indigenous people and to the reservation. So the murder is a murder of an Indigenous man who was stabbed. And the crime aspect of this novel is fine. It's nothing, spectacular. But this is not a book. This is one of those mysteries where the center of the book is not actually the crime as such. I mean, there's good pacing and you want to know who killed the guy for sure. But it's more about the life that Cash has and life of Indigenous people in and around Fargo. It's about racism. It's about this system of taking children, Indigenous children, from their parents into foster care. So there is much more going on in the book than just quote unquote the mystery. I really enjoyed it. It's the first in a series. I've heard that the second one might not be as good as this one, but I'm certainly interested in continuing the series. Me and series, I can't promise anything, but it was good enough and there was enough to go with for the next book that I'm at least interested. But if you want to have a mystery that also tackles issues of Indigenous life and racism in that area, I can certainly recommend this one. The next one I also read for Cloak and Dagger and was less of a success. This was a buddy read with Heidi, but Heidi bailed because she DNF'd it after 1/3, and that was another debut, See What I Have Done by Sarah Schmidt, an Australian author. Oh, by the way, the Murder on the Red River is from 2017, and I think this one, See What I Have Done, is also from 2017. So Sarah Schmidt, an Australian author. I've not done well reading Australian authors this year. I mean, I will film a 2022 recap next week, probably on Wednesday, and I already looked at the numbers, and not good. But this is an Australian author, and it is a fictionalized account of the Lizzie Burden murders. So Lizzie Burden was a young woman who was charged quite some time ago. I can't really remember the date, but it's like the 1900s. 1892. In 1892, she was charged with killing her father and her stepmother, both with an axe. Quite gruesome murders. She was acquitted in the end, mainly because the jury couldn't fathom that a woman could do something as gruesome as that. And there was nobody else charged, so we still don't know for sure who killed Lizzie's father and her stepmother. So the author, Sarah Schmidt, takes this murder, this unresolved murder, and her book is set mainly on the day of the murder and the day just before and after. There's also then a section that deals with the events later on, but the majority of the book is about just the day of the murder and before, told from various perspectives, Lizzie being one of them, Lizzie's sister, and the maid are the two other perspectives, and then a young man, Benjamin, who is a visitor in the house during the time of the murder. And why didn't this book work for me? I was bored. I mean, of course, it's a murder where you know what happened, but this book is really having sort of one idea that this is a completely dysfunctional family, and the author runs with that, and it's always, everything is always gross. You have a lot of vomit and bodily fluids and spit and bad smells. So that is a tool, not a bad tool, by the way, to show how dysfunctional this household is. But it's getting repetitive and old after, a couple of 50, 60, 70 pages. And there is nothing else. The relationship between Lizzie and her older sister is kind of interesting, but again, it's not, it just didn't hold my interest. I didn't DNF it. I just was too curious to see, how it developed, but I skim read a big portion in the middle. And I am sorry. A lot of people look at the gripping, outstanding, stunning. So it's probably me. Glittering, we have, eerie and compelling. I didn't find any of those. I can't recommend it, but it might very well be me and Heidi, because she didn't like it. Anyway, and the third one is also an Australian author. So all 3 Australian authors I read, spoiler, 2 of them I read in December. That's really, really bad. I really want to do better in 2023, but it's sometimes so hard to get Australian books here in Europe. The third book I want to talk to you about is this one. You probably can't read the title. I don't like this type of cover where you can't read the title and the author's name. So the author's name is Jessica Au, spelled A-U, and the book is called Cold Enough for Snow, and it was published earlier this year. It's I mean, a novella. It's 95 pages. And I buddy read this together with Adam. And it is, Jessica Au is an Australian author. I told you that already, but a Chinese Australian author. So the book is about two women, a mother and a daughter, visiting Japan, Tokyo, Kyoto, together. They don't live together. The daughter is in her 30s, I would say. They meet in Tokyo, and then they explore the city. So each chapter, short little chapter, is all told from the perspective of the daughter taking her mother on this trip and showing her things. The daughter had been to Japan before. She speaks a little bit, so she is more familiar with the setting, the surroundings, than her mother, who had never been to Japan. The mother was born in Hong Kong and moved to Australia when she was a young woman, married there, still had family in Hong Kong, but visited only once or twice when her father died and her brother died. So the book is very, very quiet. There's no plot, basically. That's not normally that much my thing. You know me if you follow my channel. I'm a quite plot-oriented reader. I like a good plot, but I do like contemplation, and if it's well done and it's really well written, I can sort of it's like a Japanese garden in a way, even though the author is not Japanese. So I definitely like the atmosphere. I did like the contemplations about the relationship of a daughter with her mother, trying to get close to her, but also realizing how different they are, reflections on, seeing things, travel, on her studies. She looks back at her college years. But in the end, it was good, but not good, if you know what I mean. And that is because I think it's very much, it lives from those reflections. And I think it would have worked better if it had been nonfiction. Because I, in the end, didn't find the narrator interesting enough to really think, to really care about what she thinks. If it had been the author, you then know that's a real person, and that is more interesting to me. But if you like the quiet stuff, lots about Japanese culture, women to women and a mother-daughter relationship, you might give it a try. It's 95 pages, so it's not a huge time investment. Then two books I just want to mention very briefly because I'm still reading them. The first is nonfiction, Angela Davis, Women, Culture and Politics, published in 1989. Essays about women and culture and politics. I'm buddy reading this with Kathleen from Kathleen Ann, and we have one section left, and I'm pretty sure we will finish this before the end of the year. And I will then talk about it more. But it's interesting. It's not earth-shatteringly interesting. Some stuff is a bit dated because the book has been published in 1989, but most of the essays have been written in 1985, 1987. But some things are also still very valid, which is kind of discouraging in a way. And the other book I'm still working on is also a buddy read with Karen from Run Right Reads, and we are reading Doris Lessing's famous book, The Golden Notebook, published in 1962. And we also have one big portion, one section left. Karen is very busy with Flogmas and everything, so I'm not sure whether she will finish the book, but I'm planning on finishing this book before the end of the year because I don't like carryovers. This is a book I told you before about Anna Wolf, a writer who contemplates her life, her friendships, her relations with men, her past. She does that in various notebooks, and interspersed are also her dealings with her friend Molly and Molly's son Tommy. So I talked about this book already enough, and you probably have read it. I find it so far more interesting than enjoyable. And it's a book from a famous author, but also a famous feminist book. So that is an interesting fact. But to say that I really enjoy reading it, no, but more of that once I've finished. And then back to Cloak and Dagger, I started another buddy read with Heidi, which is much more successful. We're making our way through the Lindley Mysteries by Elizabeth George, and we are now on to book 5, For the Sake of Eleanor, published in 1992. You might remember the last book, something Vengeance in the title, was a kind of a prequel. So we are with Inspector Lindley and his the second detective sergeant Barbara Havers. We are back with those two, and the book before was going back before Lindley and Havers worked together. So this picks up where the third book left off. There is a murder. Obviously, a young woman has been bludgeoned to death quite gruesomely in her face, so her face is not even recognizable anymore, near Cambridge. So the setting is a school setting, a university setting, like we had before in this series. And it's, of course, about Lindley and Havers, how they work together. If you are not familiar, Lindley is a lord, so he's from the upper class. Barbara Havers is from a working class background, and they became good partners and friends, but they are very different. And then you have Havers dealing with issues in her private life, with her dementia of her mother, her father who was very ill, and Lindley in his private life deals with the fact that he's in love with Lady Helen, and it's not really working out yet for various reasons. I'm really enjoying this. It's a good, fast-paced, well-done mystery. You know what you're getting when you pick up an Elizabeth George. I love the two characters, the main characters. I love the setting. I love the richness of Elizabeth George's writing. She really goes into detail, even if it's just Lindley visiting a coffee shop and having pastry. She will not just tell you that in 2 sentences, but you will get the atmosphere. And I really, really enjoy that. So this was a good pick, better than our last buddy read with See What I Have Done. So these are the books for this recent reads on Sunday. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments. And yes, I'm really, really horribly behind with answering comments. I hope I will have some time next week to catch up, but I still appreciate your comments, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.